Working Families Party, we're here at the People's Summit, and there was a bit of criticism last night. We were just discussing this over the Democratic Party, and Bernie has been tough on the Democratic Party. And I've heard over and over people say, we should start a third party. And I'm like, there are third parties. Sure. Working Families Party has been working at this for a very long time. Tell us about the history of the Working Families Party.
Sure. So the Working Families Party is a progressive grassroots political party. We've got membership across the country, but have well-organized chapters now in 13 states and growing all the time. And, we see our mission as recruiting and training and electing the next generation of progressive leaders so we can actually confront the crises that we're seeing in our society right now, from growing economic inequality to structural racism to runaway climate change to a broken democracy. These are serious problems, and we think a lot of the time the people anointed by the establishment in the Democratic Party are not really providing solutions that meet the scale of those crises. So what we do is we recruit and train people and help elect people who we believe share those values and can help advance a vision of justice and equity in America. Sometimes that means, a lot of the time that means running candidates within Democratic primaries. Right.
So this is actually really important because I'm noticing the conversations. There's a lot of conversation about third parties, and I was on a panel yesterday where we got a little bit into the details, and eyes lit up because folks were like, well, we should just abandon the Democratic Party and start a third party. And I finally pushed back and I said, well, 50 states have 50 different methods to get on the ballot. And those mechanisms are controlled by sometimes Republicans, Democrats, or, there's different standards for all of them. Now, you guys have been doing this for a long time, and you're in several states, and that means that there's a ballot line in some states, right? Can you explain just that process a little bit more so people understand how much work needs to go into building a party like the Working Families Party?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there are different election laws in every state. In 3 states, we actually are a formal state-recognized party on the ballot. And those tend to be the states with what we call cross-endorsement or fusion voting. It exists in just a few states, but it was a tool that was commonly used by the populists to sort of unite rural populists and urban workers in, around the turn of the century. It worked so well that the two parties and the big banks got together to ban it. That was like 100 years ago, and it still exists in a handful of states, and where we have it, we use it, and it allows the Working Families Party to actually be on the ballot as a party and supporting people who might also be running as kind of a progressive Democratic candidate. In other states, we don't have that, and it means we have to adapt to different sets of laws in different circumstances. So in places where we don't have that law, it doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to have a ballot line on the ballot where we're running against okay Democrat and a terrible Republican and helping elect to the terrible Republican. So what we do, it might look a little bit more like working kind of inside and outside the Democratic Party at the same time. We organize outside the Democratic Party and then run candidates within Democratic primaries and then help pretty good Democrats or great Democrats elect terrible Republicans, and then help elect real, movement champions and leaders who we believe in to help them beat mediocre Democrats. We've actually had a lot of success already this year. There are some races that I think people are getting really excited about that you've heard. They've gotten shout-outs over and over again at this conference.
Like
Christine Pellegrino.
Who is that?
So Christine Pellegrino is...
I say that in sarcasm because...
Everybody knows, you think?
No, I'm saying sarcasm because we've covered her a lot on TYT, but yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, so Christine Pellegrino is a teacher, a union activist, a leader in the opt-out movement against sort of high-stakes testing in education, and she was a Bernie delegate. And there was a special election on this Trump-leaning district on Long Island. Trump won with more than 60% of the vote. And the local Democrats were headed towards a different candidate who was not very inspiring, who we didn't see as a messenger for our values. And we think the only way to win back these kinds of districts is to give people a vision that they can be excited about and to run somebody who is giving people a reason to come out and vote. And so we backed Christine Pellegrino and the activists in the teachers union and...
Our revolution.
Sure, our revolution. And pretty soon, the the Democrats in the district had to follow along, and she ended up as the Democratic nominee, the Working Families nominee, and won by a pretty hefty margin, too. So it gives us a lot of hope for districts around the country like that.
She flipped the district 40 points. She flipped it and then gained another 20 points on top of that. It was an incredible thing to witness firsthand. As I was a former Bernie delegate with Christine, so it was beautiful to see our community turn out for Christine.
And there are other great races like that where, Larry Krasner, the next district attorney in Philadelphia, who ran on a really bold platform of ending stop and frisk, a permanent ban on the death penalty, ending the system of cash bail, and really confronting what I think is increasingly seen as a broken system of mass incarceration and of policing that's overly punitive, too expensive, and fundamentally isn't working to protect communities.
What's next for folks who, there are all these people who are saying that they're going to run for office. Jordan and I were just talking about how when asked if people are going to run for office, pretty much the entire auditorium stood up. How do these guys reach out to the Working Families Party, and what kind of platform do they need to run on? What are the things that they need to do to get your attention and your help? Because you are union supported. I think that's really important to say, is that this is essentially a labor party for the country, correct?
Right. Yeah, we're supported by unions. We're deeply integrated with kind of community organizations and low-income communities, and have also a focus on fixing democracy, criminal justice, and taking on climate change too. But I think a broad progressive agenda. But what we want to see is candidates who we think share our values and have a plan to advance those values, and also take themselves seriously enough to have a plan to win too. I think it's incredible that there are thousands of people stepping up to run for office. And I think one thing that we as progressives, as people who believe in a better vision for society, need to do now, and we have a duty to take ourselves and our campaigns a little bit more seriously. And that means investing in the skills and the trainings to actually be able to beat the other side. The right wing brings people to trainings multiple times a year. They invest in training. They have grassroots leadership that emerges. And I think we need to be intentional about investing in the skills and the mechanics. We'll never have the money that the conservatives have. We'll never have the money of the right wing. But what we do have is actually a vision that is popular for society. But we need to take ourselves seriously enough to run to win.
Joe Dankin, Communications Director for the Working Families Party. Always a pleasure. So happy to see you here.
Thank you so much, Numiki.
And thanks for rushing over. If you guys can't see, this is a giant hall. And everywhere we go, like if I have to go somewhere, I have to schedule like half hour to get there because it's just such a long walk. And then you run into people along the way and you're like, oh, hey, I haven't spoken to you in so long, so I'm glad that you made it.
And can I shout out the website before I go?
Of course.
Yeah. And people who want to get involved, either if you're interested in building a new local chapter of the Working Families Party anywhere in America, if you're a candidate that wants to run for office, should reach out to us at workingfamilies.org.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks so much.